cold sweat in the air. Helmet cracks like a thunderous snare. Bodies collide, dreams take flight. I'm under the glow of stadium lights. It's chaos, it's wild, it's all that we need. The slap of the meat, the hunger, the speed. Slapping meat, grit, iron, hearts on fire. Breaking bones, chasing desire. Touchdown strings, a war zone choir. Slapping meat, grit, iron, hearts on fire. Trash talk flies like confetti in wind. A battle of wills, a game to the end. Hail Mary prayers, soaring through skies. The roar of the crowd, the echo of cries. It's brutal, it's raw, it's all we believe. The slap of the meat, the fight to achieve. The slapping meat, grit, iron, hearts on fire. Breaking bones, chasing desire. Touchdown strings, a war zone choir. Slapping meat, grit, iron, hearts on fire. Trash talk flies like confetti in wind. A battle of wills, a game to the end. Hail Mary prayers, soaring through skies. The roar of the crowd, the echo of cries. It's brutal, it's raw, it's all we believe. The slap of the meat, the fight to achieve. Slapping meat, grit, iron, hearts on fire. Breaking bones, chasing desire. Touchdown strings, a war zone choir. Slapping meat, grit, iron, hearts on fire. On fire.
And what is up, everyone? This is the debut episode of the newest addition to the Slapping Meat Entertainment catalog. This is Slapping Meat Gridiron. I am WETOODEEP, the host, and we're coming in. If you guys are in the listeners to my other podcast here on Slapping Meat Entertainment, the Slapping Meat Wrestling Podcast, and you're in that Discord, I told you guys this would happen, and all of that, right? That this is going to happen, that we're going to talk about sports, that we're going to have a good time doing it. And by sports, I mean the NFL. That's it. So what I want to do is start a little bit by introducing what this podcast is. This podcast is a more casual, a more, I don't want to say uninformed, but a more, like, again, casual look, opinionated, by the way. These are simply my opinions on the sport of professional football. Preferably the NFL, right? We're not going to talk college. We're not, until we get to the draft. Some of my favorite episodes that I do, or things that I like to talk about in the world of, the NFL is the draft, right? That when we get to April, that'll be one of the, a better time for me, because let me just be honest. I'm going to tell you what this will not be. I'm not going to try to be an expert. I'm not going to try to break down the game or act like I know what I'm talking about. In a way that some people try to do, right? I'm just a fan of the New England Patriots who wants to talk some sports, right? And with that, again, just understand that a lot of this is opinionated. I'm not trying to, you don't have to take my opinion for nothing, because it's worth about as much as that, right? It's simply an opinion. And so this debut episode, we're going to talk on two things. The first is I'm going to give my input on this internet conversation on who's better. Jalen Hurts, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, or former quarterback of the Panthers and Patriots, Cam Newton. Who's the better quarterback? We're going to discuss that. The second thing, and how what we'll probably spend a lot of time and most of the time on, will be my NFL season predictions at the start of the preseason, right? And again, these aren't expert analysis. This is just a fan. I'll be honest. So to spare you the boredom of me going week to week, because I know a lot of people, what they'll do is they pull up, they screen grab their camera, or screen grab their computer screen. They'll go through and they would do week to week, 18 weeks. Let's predict every game, right? There's a wonderful website, Playoff Predictors, where you could literally do just that. Well, I'm going to spare you those boring details, because I don't have a lot to add to why I'm picking certain teams. A lot of my predictions came into, well, how do I feel about this matchup? Such and such are playing such and such. How do I feel about this? Right? And so I'll go through my predictions. We'll go through the playoffs. We'll predict the playoffs even at the start of the preseason. And then we could use this as a historical record to see how incorrect I was on August the 8th, 2025. When we get to the Super Bowl and you say, bro, you completely got that wrong. Let's see about that, right? So let's dive on in. That's the agenda for today. Who's better, Jalen or Cam? And then we'll predict the season. In doing those predictions, I'm going to give you a list of teams that what I call the teams I'm hot on at this point in the preseason. Those are teams that I think are going to do, good or better than expected. Teams that I'm a little bit more have a heavier bias to if they were in a matchup. And then teams that I'm not on will be also. These are teams that, I don't think are as good as people are maybe hyping them up to be, right? And then I'll give you, as I'm going through predictions, I got two what I call my biggest upsets of the year. It's 3 games, right, that I think are going to be big upsets. And so we'll get to that in our preseason predictions. But first, let's talk about it. This is like, I see this everywhere now, right? Over like the last month or so. And I don't know. I don't listen to Cam Newton's podcast, so I don't know what he's insinuated. I don't pay attention to a lot of mainstream sports, Fox or ESPN or anything like that. And so I don't really know what the arguments for either side are. I'm going to give my take though. Jalen Hurts, Cameron Newton. Let's who's better? And can I be honest with you? My answer is Jalen Hurts. I do think Jalen Hurts is the better overall player. Now, it depends on what the criteria are here. Are we asking who the better quarterback is? Well, that's hard with these two players because neither of them play quarterback in the traditional sense of quarterback. Traditionally, the quarterback was the guy who, handed the ball off or threw the football. It didn't really require, in a traditional form, you to be athletic. And throughout history, sure, there have been athletic quarterbacks. But neither of these are your traditional quarterback. Cam was big, tall, stocky, could run the football, has at this current moment leads the league in quarterback rushing touchdowns. Probably going to be beat by both Hurts and Josh Allen this year. But Cam is not your traditional quarterback. Jalen Hurts is not your traditional quarterback. So I want to talk about each player individually. So my answer is, and as far as who the better player is, it's Jalen Hurts, right? And we're not going to bring in stats and all of that. We're not going to bring up Super Bowl rings. I don't necessarily think rings equals GOAT status, right? I think you have to have a culmination of a lot of things to consider yourself the GOAT. And I also don't like having that conversation, like, who's the GOAT of the GOAT quarterback? A lot of people will say Brady, and you would expect me as a Patriots fan to say Brady. And I don't, it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, Tom Brady's the greatest player to play quarterback. Out of the hundreds or out of the thousands of players that have played quarterback in NFL history, it's really hard for me when you compare Tom Brady to the 60s. They're two very vastly different games. Would Tom Brady have been as successful in the 60s as he was in the situation he was in? Right? So it's very hard for, and that goes for every sport when you talk about GOATs. So I rather would talk about who's the GOAT of this era. Right? So Brady is definitely the GOAT of the 2000s, right? But could he beat Montana? I don't know. It's really hard to have that conversation without having some sort of either bias showing either to or for a player, right? I don't like GOAT conversations because eras change, the sport changes, and that's for every sport. I'm just gonna be honest, right? But if we're talking about these two players, I can't argue from who's the best quarterback because they're not quarterbacks to me. I'm just gonna be honest with you; they're not quarterbacks to me, right? So I'm going to give you pros and cons for each player. Let's start with Cam Newton. Cam Newton's pros are that he was athletic and he was big, tall, stocky, could take a hit, and he was essentially the offense. Let's talk about this, though, from I think a logical standpoint that I feel like what I have heard fails to recognize is that Cam Newton, as good as he was in his prime was very short, by the way, but as good as Cam Newton was in that MVP season in 2015, I don't think he necessarily got them to the Super Bowl, right? That was solely on the defense. I can't use that as an argument, though, because I could say that about Tom Brady on pretty much every New England Patriots Super Bowl he's ever gone to. Most of the time, he was carried by the defense, which I don't think is bad. I don't think that's a knock against the player. I do believe championships are won on defense. You have to be able to stop players or stop the other team from scoring. And so defense, I do think, wins championships. Cam had a good defense. He didn't really have, outside of Olsen, he didn't really have a true receiver on that team, and from my memory, right? And so he also did not have an offensive line. And I think this is the point that everyone forgets about. And so the best way that I like to judge this is on that 2015 Super Bowl season. If I put Jalen Hurts as the quarterback, and that's the only change that I make to the team, if Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, do the Panthers still make the Super Bowl? I can't answer that question because we can't. We could run simulations, but I don't have that capability, nor do I really necessarily. So that's my question: is do I think Jalen Hurts can lead the Panthers to the Super Bowl in 2015 with the team that Cam Newton had? And I'm not 100% certain he could. Now, the same question then has to be asked. last year's Eagles Super Bowl team. If I replace Jalen Hurts with Cam Newton, do the Eagles still win the Super Bowl? And again, I can't answer 100% certain, but I think there's a better chance in that happening than putting Jalen on the 2015 Panthers and him winning a Super Bowl. And this is why. Jalen Hurts, when it really comes down to it, this is not knocking him in any way. Like Eagle fans are going to, if Eagle fans hear this, they're going to say, oh, you're just a hater. No. We're being realistic here. Jalen Hurts is a product of his system. That's not a bad thing, by the way. In fact, because I agree with a statement that has come out that Jalen Hurts is the type of quarterback that NFL GMs are looking for. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's the greatest player in the league. What that means is that NFL GMs are looking for a particular skill set in their quarterbacks. And that is game manager. You can manage the game. You can be the manager on the court or on the gridiron, right? When you're on the field, you can manage the game. You're calm, cool, collected. Jalen Hurts has that. I'll give that to him, right? He can win you games when needed, but he doesn't have to be the superstar, right? 100%. If we're talking leadership skills here, Jalen Hurts has it by miles over Cam Newton, right? But what that means is that the Eagles have completely built their offense around Jalen Hurts. And they've given him what I consider far too many weapons. You got Devontae Smith. You got A.J. Brown. You have an offensive line which it's not in its best form right now. I don't even think last year's Eagles team was the best Eagles team, but the year before that I thought probably was better. The one that lost to Kansas City in the Super Bowl, I think was probably better, right, as a team, in certain aspects. But you have an offensive line with some of the best offensive linemen in the game on your team. You have Saquon Barkley, which one could argue that Saquon Barkley is a product of having a top-tier offensive line. Now, he's still good without it. He was still good in New York. But he had a career season in Philly, coincidentally, behind the best offensive line in football. Right? You see what I'm saying? And so, but he's still a weapon. You have, quite honestly, the best receiver in football in A.J. Brown. And then you have Devontae Smith, right? And then you have Dallas Goedert. And then you go to the defense, and you've got probably I don't want to say the best because I don't want to make statements like that, but you have a top 5 defense. You have a top 5 defense. And so Jalen Hurts has all the pieces on his team that if the Eagles, watch this. If the Eagles took out Jalen Hurts and they put in any other competent quarterback in the league, will the Eagles be worse? Maybe. Jalen Hurts does bring a little bit to the offense. But if I took out Jalen and I put in, I think they got Dorian Robinson, DTR as their backup. I think, if I remember correctly, that's where he went. Because I know Pickett is now in Cleveland. Is it DTR? Well, it's Tanner McKee now. But yeah, DTR. And the reason I use DTR is because DTR is more of the same style of quarterback as Jalen. The like, who could run the ball, whereas Tanner McKee isn't that. Tanner McKee did pretty good in the preseason debut yesterday, though. But he always does, right? But let's say we take out Jalen, we put in DTR. With the weapons still on that team, could DTR not lead the Eagles to the playoffs? I think he could. Now, 2015, look at the lack of an offensive line that the Panthers have. The lack of real superstars that the Panthers had at the time on the offensive side of the ball. You take Cam Newton out, do they make the Super Bowl? That's the question I think we have to really ask. The better player, the player that I would choose would be Jalen Hurts. If I was a GM building a team and I was like, all right, current prime Jalen Hurts or prime Cam, who would you pick? I'm picking Jalen Hurts. But I'm picking Jalen Hurts for his leadership qualities. I think Cam's the better player. I'm just going to say that. But I would pick Jalen Hurts because of his leadership qualities. He's quiet. He's not going to bring attention to the team that's unnecessary. He's a locker room leader. He's not going to be a diva. I already got that in A.J. Brown. I don't need another one. Right? And so he's that guy that's going to calm down the locker room. Right? And so I'm not the best person to ask who the best player is because I'm not particularly a fan of Cam Newton, so it's a little bit biased. I think Cam Newton is too much of a drama queen. He cares too much about Cam Newton, right? And so, yeah, 100%, if I was a GM, I would pick Jalen Hurts. But I don't necessarily think I would pick Jalen Hurts because of his ability to play football. I think I would pick Jalen Hurts because he's smart. He can learn an offense, right? And I could put him in, and if I had him on my team, I could then just go grab some superstars, and I could build something with him, right? Now, now, here's where this changes. If we're talking college, which we're not, if we're talking college, Cam Newton's probably, one of, if not the best college quarterbacks in the last 20 years. Tim Tebow's number one. You're not going to beat Tim Tebow at all. I would probably say Tebow. I'm going to be honest with you. Trevor Lawrence only lost one game in college, and that was the national championship against Joe Burrow's LSU Tigers. So I would go Tebow. I would go Lawrence. I'm talking last 20 years, so I don't have that. Jameis would be in the top 5, but Cam Newton would be in my top 5 best college quarterbacks in the last 15, 20 years. Right? And so, but we're talking about NFL, we're talking about like prime Cam, prime Jalen. I would pick Jalen solely because he's smart, he's calm, he's got the personality that I want. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's the better athlete or the better player. Right? So I'm not here to judge that. I don't necessarily care about that debate. I just want to really talk about this, and my take is can we at least address the facts? Because if this podcast reaches the city of Philadelphia, they haven't heard these facts yet. Because anytime they get brought up, they just turn around and say, "Oh, you're just a hater." No. We're dealing with actual facts here. Can we not address the elephant in the room here that you've put literally the greatest team probably you could say built in the last 10 years around Jalen Hurts, right? You can give, I think, the most important man in Philadelphia. They had this debate on Good Morning Football the other day. Who's the most important man in the NFL? And this really comes down to the most important person in the Eagles building is Howie Roseman. The way he was able to get these deals around and the trade for A.J. Brown and to draft like 5 years worth of the best Georgia Bulldog defenders, and to build a literal super team around what maybe isn't a top 10. So let's go to this debate. Jalen Hurts is not the best quarterback in football. This is where I want to take this, right? Because I don't really care about Cam Newton right now, right? But let's talk about Jalen. Jalen Hurts is not even in the top 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL today. I would sit him around 7, 8, maybe 9, right? But as much as this pains me to say this, Josh Allen's the best quarterback in NFL right now. Josh Allen, as far as pure talent goes, it's Josh Allen. Because he's doing the same. Watch this. Watch this. You take Jalen out of the Eagles' offense, keep the offense the same. You plug in Josh Allen, you're doing better, which is hard to do. You won a Super Bowl last year, but you're winning Super Bowls year after year after year after year if Josh Allen is on the Eagles. Because he's just far more talented. He can do a lot more. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He is Cam Newton. And so, but I think he's better. I think he has more heart. I think he's a little bit less personality than Cam Newton is. And so, as much as I dislike the Bills, and I dislike the fact that everyone over pushes, like I used to be super biased against Josh Allen because of the team he played on, and I thought he was overrated. And I got to be honest with you, Josh Allen's the best quarterback in football. Next behind him, I would put probably just pure just looking at talent level, probably Joe Burrow. I'd have Herbert in the top 5. Mahomes. So here's my thing. Mahomes is starting to go downward to me. I think he tries to do too much, but Mahomes still talented, so he's top 5. Lamar, Lamar's not in my top 5. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know. This one's tough because I know. Here's what I can tell you: Josh Allen's the best quarterback in football, followed by Burrow, followed by Herbert. Herbert's issue is he's just on a really bad team. Can I be honest though? Like, dude who gets completely missed in this conversation of like top 5, top 10 quarterbacks is Brock Purdy. Right? And he gets missed because of these myths that he's and I've even said this at times, he's a system guy. First of all, there's nothing wrong with being a system guy. But second, I think when you play on a team like the 49ers, who like every year that Brock Purdy's been the quarterback has been extremely injury prone, and to lead a team to the Super Bowl in that situation, you got to give him some props. And so Brock Purdy. Now here's the thing: I knew Brock Purdy would be good in college. It just depended on where he went, and I think he went to the best, one of the better places to go as a quarterback is San Francisco. At that time was San Francisco, because they had Trey Lance. I don't remember who was in front of Purdy on the depth chart before Trey Lance. I think it was Darnold, but I could be wrong. But neither of them was going to be the long-term solution. They were already getting ready to move off of Trey Lance, right? Everyone was starting to get hurt. And then Purdy steps in, right? 7th round, last pick of the draft. Mr. Irrelevant. And he got paid. I think he deserved more money, right? But he took a team-friendly deal, which is good, because that means you can build around that. You know, in 5 years, when the Eagles are struggling because Jalen Hurts is going to make $50-60 million a year, and Brock Purdy's still sitting on that 37, I think what it was, and the 49ers can build around that, right? Here's the thing with the modern salary cap, right? People want to try to replicate what the Patriots did with Tom Brady. Well, you know what Tom Brady did to help do that is he took pay cuts. Like, Tom Brady at the time was making well below what the bigger quarterbacks were making, so that they could go and build a defense that could win him championships. Or so that they could go and get a Randy Moss for 2 or 3 years. And unfortunately, we didn't get anything out of it. But Tom Brady took pay cut after pay cut after pay cut so that people that we needed, the Julian Edelmans, the Gronkowskis, right? some of the bigger names on the defense so that they could stay, so that we could keep that offensive line together that protected Tom Brady, right? And so I think Brock Purdy needs to be in the conversation for top 5 best quarterback in the league. I'm just going to be honest with you. Just from a pure talent standpoint. And so, yeah, that I'll leave the conversation at that. And we're going to transition into my predictions of the NFL season at the very beginning of the preseason, right? And so before we go into actually giving you the details, I'm going to tell you just from the predictions, or before I give you all of that, teams that I'm hot on, teams that I think going into the season could be better than expected, or teams that are really good. So for example, right, we'll go into this, right? Teams that I'm hot on. We're just going to go ahead and get out of the way that the best 3 teams in pro football in the NFL this year, as we're sitting right now, the best 3 teams are the Bills, the Lions, and the Eagles. I'm not going to discuss that pretty much any further. The Bills, Lions, Eagles are probably the favorites. Now, I personally believe the Lions are the best team in football. And it's not from really an offensive perspective, even though they are really good on the offensive side of the ball. They are getting Hutchinson back, and they added someone on the other side. I forgot who they drafted that they added on the other side or signed someone. But I'm about to pull up their roster here real quick. I should have done this earlier. But the Lions over the last couple years have built a team that's like a full team effort. Again, so that you could put in someone like Jared Goff as a system guy, and he's surrounded by weapons. I don't necessarily want to see the roster. I want to see the depth chart, right? So you look at this offense here. You got like a Jameson Williams. Amon-Ra's probably a top 5 receiver in the league. Behind them, you don't have a lot on the receiver game, but that's, Khalif Raymond's pretty good, right? You go to your tight ends, you got Sam Laporta. So you theoretically have Williams, St. Brown, Laporta, and Khalif Raymond on the offense or on the receiver side of the ball game. Or excuse me, why did they move the third tier? You got Tim Patrick on the team as well, and he's really good. Well, I don't know why they listed the depth chart like this, but anyway, you got David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs on the running backs. Right, you look at this offensive line. Tate Rutledge is good. Glasgow is good at center. Taylor Decker's decent. Penei Sewell on the right as right tackle, decent or not decent. He's legit one of the better tackles in the league. This offense is stacked. So you put in someone like a Jared Goff, who has gone to the Super Bowl before. Granted, he lost to my New England Patriots, and what I consider the greatest defensive game to ever hit the Super Bowl with the final score of 10-6, if y'all remember that game. But then you go to this defense. That's really what you go to this defense, and you look at what they added here, and what they have on defense. Just the front 4, DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil as your tackles. I don't know if anyone's going through the middle of that defense. Then you get Hutch back from injury. And if he's anything like the Hutch he was before injury, game over. And then on the other side, you got Marcus Davenport, right? You got Campbell and Anzalone at linebacker, DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph as your back for your secondary. Bro, this team is legit right now. And then you go through just the backups and the third stringers, and I'm looking, Mekhi Wingo's decent. Zach Cunningham at linebackers, really good. Rock Ya-Sin is really good. I think the Detroit Lions, and this is crazy, you would not have said this 10, 20 years ago. The Detroit Lions are the best team in football right now. And so Bills, Lions, Eagles, get that out of the way. Teams I'm hot on. Now other teams. So let's start with three teams that I think are going to outdo expectations. We'll start out west with the Denver Broncos. Now, I joke around sometimes. I'm like, oh, Bo Nix is a really good quarterback. You got Sean Payton with the Broncos. There's a interesting situation I think could happen that I'll discuss when I give you a team that I'm not hot on, or that I'm not on, which is the Chiefs, when we'll talk about why I'm not on the Chiefs this year. And that is, the Chiefs have to play like 6 really, really good teams. And just from a scheduling standpoint, the Chiefs could have 6 losses just by playing the Lions, the Eagles, the Bills, the Commanders, and there's one other really good team they have to play just from a scheduling, or they got to play the Broncos twice. So from a scheduling standpoint, that's like 5. That could potentially be 5 losses, at least 2 or 3, from a scheduling standpoint. And the Broncos, I mean, they got to play the same teams because they're playing the same division. But I think the Broncos are a little bit better suited. I think they're going to be better than many people assume. Like, even myself, like, when I was going through these predictions, I was like, the Broncos might be better than a lot of people think they are, right? The next team are the Panthers. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Panthers are going to win the division. I still think that's the Buccaneers. But I have the Panthers making the playoffs. As we're standing right now, I have the Panthers making the playoffs. They've, outside of my next team, what they did in the off season, I think the Panthers did a lot to get better. They get Ted Aurora McMillan, I think is his name, Ted McMillan at receiver to be your true number 1 for Bryce. You did a little bit of work on that offensive line. You got better defensively. I think this team, as we're standing right now, will be a playoff team. I don't think they win the division, but I think they will be a playoff team. My next team that I'm hot on are my New England Patriots, and this is zero to do with bias. If anyone knows me, like literally, if you know me, I'm very realistic when it comes to my teams. The Patriots were dog water last year, but I'm super excited with the changes that we've made. The most excited that I am is we have a competent head coach. Mike Vrabel, I was a little bit upset with the hire because I wanted Ben Johnson. To be completely honest with you, I wanted Ben Johnson. And I was tired of sort of like, we got to bring in the ex-Patriot. But everything I've seen since the hire, where he's bringing back this tough-nosed nature. We just were, there was a scrum at joint practice with the Commanders this week, and Vrabel was at the bottom of the pile trying to break it up. Like, we're not doing the little gay dances the Cowboys were doing. We're playing football. And I'm right. Gerard Mayo, as much as I respect you as a player, was not a good head coach. And he had zero credibility in anything that would tell you he would be a head coach. Like, anyone could have seen that failure of an experiment. Mike Vrabel is good. He's led the Titans before to the playoffs. That's probably our most important change. But then you bring in guys like Stephon Diggs. You draft Travion Henderson to add to Ramondre Stevenson. You have probably one of the better drafts I've ever seen the Patriots have. We get a legit left tackle in Will Campbell to protect Drake May. We have Drake May, by the way, which I think, as much as I hated the pick, again, I didn't want Drake May. I wanted J.J. McCarthy, to be honest with you. And I'm glad we got Drake May instead. And, because Drake May is going to be a really good quarterback if he has a team built around him. But let's just also not forget, the Patriots have a top 10 defense. And defense wins championships. But the biggest reason I'm hot on my Patriots is we're ranked the third easiest schedule in football. There are like 7 games that we play this season that just stepping on the field, we should win those games. You then add in the 50-50 games and the division games. I like the chances of the Patriots to be a playoff team just because of scheduling. So now we're down to my final 2 teams that I'm hot on. And the first one has the easiest schedule in football. So from a scheduling aspect, this could be a 15-win team, and that's the San Francisco 49ers, just because of their schedule, but not just their schedule. You got Nick Bosa. I just told you everything. You got the Debo situation out with Debo going to Washington. So you got Ayuk as your true number 1. You got a healthy team for the first time in a while. Hopefully they can stay healthy. Like fully healthy with their big players. This 49ers team could be a sleeper to stand on their home stadium in the Super Bowl. Could be a sleeper. And my last team I'm hot on is the Washington Commanders. There's a lot of talk about, the Eagles got this locked in the bag. You got to talk about, Micah Parsons. Now we got to talk about the Commanders real quick. And if Terry McLaurin does get traded, this changes how I feel about the team. But as we stand right now, the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels, which I think I'm not willing to put him in the top 8 or 9 quarterbacks right now because he's only had 1 year. As we stand, Jaden Daniels, if he repeats what he did last year, is a top 10 quarterback. And he just got another weapon in Debo. He has Terry McLaurin. They got a decent running game. Not so certain what their offensive line is like, but I know their defense got better a little bit. I really, really, really think this Commanders team will outdo expectations. And I think the way they're building should awaken Jerry Jones up a little bit and say, hey, maybe I should hire someone to be my director of football operations, right? So I'm really hot on those teams. Teams I'm not hot on, we'll start with the Chiefs. Again, a lot of the Chiefs issues that I'm not hot on is just their schedule. They play a lot of hard teams this year. I mean, they open against the Ravens. Excuse me, that's a lie. They open against the Chargers. My lie. Week 2 is the Eagles. Week 4 is the Ravens. Week 6 is the Lions. Week 8 is the Commanders. Week 9 is the Bills. They play the Broncos twice. You play the Texans, which could always be a shock game. You play the Cowboys. I don't think you'll really struggle with them. But I'm looking at like 7 or 8 games that the Chiefs could theoretically lose just the way the schedule is built. And then you talk about, I don't think they're as good as a team. The team didn't change much. I think I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to be dog water and that they're not going to make the playoffs. The Chiefs are making the playoffs. I'm just not hot on them making the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl this year. The schedule is rough. And I'm just, right. The next team, a lot of people are really high on the Bengals. They paid T. Higgins. They got Jamar Chase. They got a healthy Joe Burrow. I just don't know about that defense. I just don't know about that locker room. Is Shamar Stewart playing or not? There's a lot of drama going on in Cincinnati, and when you have the Ravens, which I probably could have been on teams that I'm hot on, but I think that everyone expects the Ravens to be good, right? When you got a division with the Ravens, now you don't got to worry about the Browns, right? But when you got a team like the Ravens that's going to win your division, and then you got to go up against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers twice, and then I'm not going to put the Bengals in like this is going to be a good team. Now, the Bengals could sneak into the playoffs. I don't think they go much further than sneaking into the playoffs, though. We got a group of five teams. 4 teams. We got a group of 4 teams that I'm just already going to say I'm not on right now. And that's the Jets, the Giants, the Saints, and the Jaguars. I expect very little from them as far as wins and losses. I think the Saints and the Jets are going to battle. They actually battle this year. They play each other like week 13 or something. And I think that could theoretically be a game where both teams go in with being 0 and whatever versus 0 and whatever, and a team gets their first win. I think they're going to battle for a worse team. I'm putting the Giants in this category. I know they've done some changes to the team. I don't necessarily think that's going to help. The Giants are still ass. The Falcons. I'm not big on the Falcons. I know a lot of people are because they had a decent season last year. But you know what I put into consideration a lot of times is who has the harder schedule, right? So like the Giants have the hardest schedule in football. That's why I'm off of them. They did very little to me to build a good team, and they got the hardest schedule in football. The Falcons are about mid-pack. I'm just not certain that team's going to be any good. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's tough. The Rams. I know everyone's high on the Rams. I'm not. Let's add their stadium mates, the Chargers. The Chargers just lost Rashawn Slater for the year after paying the man $28 million a year. Not big on these teams. More specifically, the Rams. You lose Cooper Kupp. Sure, you add Devontae Adams, but is Devontae Adams really the same Devontae Adams he was in Green Bay? We'll see. Stafford, we don't really know what his situation's going to be if he gets hurt and you got Stetson Bennett as your quarterback. I mean, Jimmy G apparently struggling to learn the playbook. Right? You got Kyron Williams, but that's practically your offense. Right? That's crazy. The Vikings, I'm not high on the Vikings. I know they had a really good year last year with Sam Darnold. Guys, welcome to reality. J.J. McCarthy's your quarterback, and he's struggling. He's coming off an injury, never played a snap in the NFL. Welcome to reality that your team is ass. I know a lot of people are high on the Raiders. Now, I don't think the Raiders are going to be the worst team ever. I'm just not high on them. The Seahawks. I don't think Sam Darnold repeats, and I don't think the Seahawks. I mean, they added Cooper Kupp, and they got Njigba, so the Seahawks could be better, but I'm just not high on them. And I have the Steelers on my list with Aaron Rodgers edition because I think a lot of people think they're going to come in there and potentially win the division, and they're not. We just got to get that out of our minds, right? So now let's talk about my actual predictions. And so I'm going to spare you the boredom. I'm going to spare you the boredom of week 1. I think this... No. I've done that already. I've got my final order, my final record for every team. We're going to start from worst to best. So what we'll do, I'm going to list the we're just going to go up. We'll do the AFC first. So, I have the Tennessee Titans going 1-16. This team's going to be ass. I don't even, I'm not big on Cam Ward. They ain't got much on this team to be excited about. I got them going 1-16. I got the Jets going 3-14. I got the Browns going 3-14. I got the Jaguars going 3-14. I got the Raiders going 5-12. I got the Colts going 6-11. I got the Chargers going 7-10. I got the Dolphins going 8-9. The Bengals going 8-9. Now we're into the playoffs. I got the Steelers going 10-7. And you just said, oh, they're a team you're not on. Well, like I said, they're going to make the playoffs. The problem is that a lot of people are assuming that they did a lot of good changes to their team, and they could potentially battle with the Ravens to go win the division. That's why I'm not on them. I'm not on them as they're that good, right? I think 10-7 is good for the Steelers, right? 6th seed, I got the Chiefs at 11-6. The 5th seed at 14-3, I got the Bills. And you're like, the 5th seed? What the hell? We'll explain here in a minute. My 4th seed, I got the Texans going 11-6. The 3 seed, I got the Broncos going 13-4. My 2 seeds, the Patriots at 14-3, and my 1 seeds, the Raiders at 16-1. Again, I'm not an expert. A lot of the times when I looked at it, again, it was a feeling. What do I feel about this match? We're not going to overanalyze it. We're just going to pick, right? So why are the Bills the 5th seed? Well, we're tied, and this comes into my first big upset prediction. And that big upset is I think the Patriots sweep the Bills this year. I do. I just have a feeling we're going to sweep the Bills. We're going to beat them. I think we meet week 5 and week 15. We're going to beat them week 5 in Buffalo. I just have a feeling. I just have a feeling that the Patriots are going to do that. Right? And again, we have the 30th schedule. We should at least have 10 wins. I think we can sneak out 2 wins against the Bills. I think I gave our losses to the Ravens. I don't actually know all of my schedule off the top of my head, but I know I had us losing to the Ravens. I think I had us losing to the Buccaneers. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that's what the AFC looks like. So again, our 7 playoff teams: Ravens, Patriots, Broncos, Texans, Bills, Chiefs, Steelers. We go to the NFC side of the ball game, or of the field. I think the Giants' hardest schedule in the league: 1-16, 1-16 for the Vikings, 2-15 for the Saints. The Falcons are 4-13. Seahawks are 6-11. Packers are 6-11. I'm not really big on the Packers. You could add them to the list. I'm not big on them. The Cardinals, I have going 7-10. The Rams and the Cowboys, I have going 9-8. I have the Bears. Now we're in the playoffs. The Bears going 9-8, solely because of conference record. Right? I have them going 7-5 in the conference, whereas the Rams and the Cowboys are going 6-6. Right? But Bears at 9-8. 6th seed is the Panthers at 11-6. 5th seed the Eagles at 14-3. The Eagles have a really interesting path as well, as they got to play the Lions, they got to play the Chiefs, they got to play the Bills. Right? I think those are the 3. No, that's a lie. I have them winning a couple of those games. I think I have them losing to the Lions and losing to the Bills, and then their third loss is to, I think they split with the Commanders, right? But 4th seed, the Buccaneers at 12-5. The Commanders are the 3 seed, win the division at 15-2. San Francisco, easiest schedule in football, 16-1. And then the Lions going 17-0. Even with a tough schedule, like I said, this is the best team in football. I can't see a team they lose against, just honestly. And so my last big upset, and you're like, oh, the Commanders going 15-2. One of their losses is to Philly. I think I had them losing to the Lions as well. Well, don't they also play the Chiefs? That's the upset. In Kansas City, Monday Night Football, I am going to predict right now that the Washington Commanders beat Kansas City. I think that's week 8. That is going to be my prediction for probably the biggest upset of the year. Is Washington in prime time, Monday Night Football, comes into Kansas City and beats Kansas City. So now you're saying, okay, there's your playoff team. So let's go predict the first round of the playoffs. Well, that leads us to the Texans versus the Bills. And I got the Bills winning. I'm just going to be honest. The Bills are going to beat the Texans, move on to the next round. You get the Patriots versus the Steelers. Matchups in the playoffs matter more than really necessarily talent. I think the Patriots beat the Steelers. Broncos versus the Chiefs. I think the Broncos at home get the victory in the first round. We move to the NFC first round. We got the Buccaneers and the Eagles. I think the Eagles in Tampa. Flashbacks to Jason Kelsey's last season. But I think the Eagles win this game. And then you got San Francisco versus Chicago. As much as I would love Chicago to be like this big story, again, it's not happening. San Francisco. Then you get Washington versus Carolina. And again, I have a bet. I didn't tell you guys this, but I have a bet that if New England and Carolina make the Super Bowl, the Patriots and the Panthers make the Super Bowl, both of them, I win the bet. I win $38,000 off a $20 bet. So I would really appreciate if the Carolina Panthers could make the Super Bowl and the Patriots, right? That is not going to happen with this matchup. Washington's going to beat Carolina. So we go into the second round. You got the Bills versus the Ravens. And I think this is a week 1, if I remember correctly, a week 1 rematch. I think the Bills do beat Baltimore here. As much as I like Baltimore, the Bills are going to do this, right? The Bills are going to make it. Broncos versus Patriots in New England, possibly a snow game. Doesn't really matter because you play in Mile High, so you deal with lack of oxygen a lot of times. So, like, if you want to talk about playing football in, like, hard atmospheres, like, the Broncos probably have the worst city to play in. With that being said, as good as I think the Broncos will be this year, I'm moving the Patriots on to the conference championship to play the Bills. And on the NFC side, we got the Lions versus the Eagles, and I'm going Lions. I think the Lions beat the Eagles again. You need to prove to me why it would have. In Detroit, raucous crowd. I don't necessarily think the Eagles are the same team they were last year. I think they got a little worse. Like I said, I think Detroit's the best team in football. San Francisco versus Washington. This is a tough one to predict, but I'm predicting Washington to win this game. Conference championship, Bills, Patriots to go to the Super Bowl, and I know that you're going to say there's a bias here, but I'm picking, again, matchups are more important than talent at times. You're in New England because New England swept the Bills. You're in New England. You got a home field advantage that I think is bar none. When the Patriots fans show up and we're winning, we have one of the best home field advantages. I'm picking the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl. Truly, with no bias, I think that can happen. Washington versus the Lions in Detroit. I think the Lions. So my Super Bowl will be the Lions versus the Patriots. And to win their first Super Bowl in franchise history, I believe. I don't think the Lions have ever won one. I do have the Lions doing something that we have never seen since 1973, and that is winning every single game you play. I have them going perfect 17-0 in the regular season. They're going to win 1, 2, 3. So that's 1 game, 2 games, 3 games. They're going to win 3 games in the preseason. They're going to go perfect, 20-0. And I have the Detroit Lions winning the Super Bowl this year. And so that's the episode. That's all I got to say. We got about an hour out of it, more than I thought I would go. Thank you all for listening to this debut episode of Slap and Meet Gridiron. I'm WETOODEEP. There are links to join the Discord if you're a wrestling fan, because that's what we typically talk about in that community. But thank you again for listening. Let me know what you guys think. Like, share, comment. Check out the Slap and Meet Wrestling podcast Tuesdays and Fridays as well. And until then, I'll see you guys on the next episode.